Hi, my name is Eva Steiner, and this is my project Psychotherapists Around the Globe. I am interviewing the psychotherapists around the world and asking them the same 8 questions. I am wondering how mental health profession is in their country. Today we are going to
Thank you for doing this interview with me. Before you start, can you tell me a little bit about yourself?
Thank you so much for having me. I've been looking forward to it. So for your listeners, my name is Tumee. Usually people pronounce it Tumee, but it's Tumee. And I was born in Mongolia and I raised in different countries like Russia, Germany, and now my home is Japan. And I've been practicing in Japan for the last 5-6 years. Before that, I've been practicing in the States.
Good. So the first question, tell me a little bit about Japanese culture. What is some holiday or tradition that they celebrate? And if the Japan culture would be an emotion, what emotion would it be?
I'll start with the holidays. Japanese people love to celebrate. They have holidays like Children's Day, Respect for Age Day, celebration for the elderlies, and then Sports Day, Culture Day, and even Coming of Age Day when the people becomes an adult. The legal age becoming an adult is like 20 years old. Yeah. And one of the interesting celebration for me is that the Respect for the Age Day is a one holiday. Everyone goes and takes one day off in this holiday, and then they visit their parents or they show respect for their elderlies, and then they will have the shops, the department stores, they will sell very nicely packaged gifts. Yeah, it's something I haven't seen in different countries. That I think this way it's very uniquely Japanese holiday.
It sounds great. I love it. And how do they celebrate? They visit the elderly, or how do they celebrate this holiday?
They go to they meet their family members, their parents, and also I think they believe they also celebrate like the co-workers who are older than them or someone they know, not necessarily the family members. Anyone who is older than them, it's like a celebration for them. Yeah, so much
that's nice.
For the elderly. It's very unique for Asians, isn't it?
Yeah.
So the second question, if it's an emotion, what kind of emotion it would be? I think it would be a harmonious. So Japanese people value harmony over everything, right? And in this interesting study actually done, I think it was the last year, the couples study, they invited 66 couples. The median age is probably like about 50, and duration of the marriage was around like 25 to 35 years long marriage. And they studied if you value harmony so much, would it hinder or prevent expressing oneself's emotion and thoughts, right? Would it lead into suppression? So which, the suppression can be a harmful emotion. And so they did this study among those Japanese 66 couples. And interestingly, the study found that the suppression didn't really connect or impact the well-being, the quality of the marriage.
Do you think the suppression was happening, or that they find a way to express it, but in a harmonious way?
Right. So I believe that they don't consider suppression as a suppression. So because they value the harmony so much, it gives them the satisfaction. Right. So when they're satisfied, the mental well-being is higher, then holding on to certain opinion is not that important, not necessary, because the value of the harmony is lesser than the, expressing oneself's opinion more. So I found it's very uniquely Japanese phenomenon.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, the second question, how do you become a psychotherapist in Japan? And if you can also share a little bit about your psychotherapeutic path and your approach.
Right. So I didn't become a psychologist in Japan. I went to United States and I went to graduate study there, and I become a psychologist, psychotherapist in Japan. I used to be licensed and practiced in the United States about 5 years. And yes, I did go to college. My bachelor degrees is one is in Germany and one other one is in Japan. So I came back to Japan to practice. And in Japan, the licensing procedure is actually by choice at the moment. I'm only comparing to United States here, that the title psychologist and psychotherapist is legally protected. You cannot call yourself psychologist or psychotherapist unless you really fulfill all the requirements, right? However, it's a little different in Japan. So it's a good and bad. So I start with the bad aspect of it, because you can call yourself psychologist and you can practice here, even you just had a few psych classes in community college, let's say. You can be a psychologist, and also you can be psychologist going through all the, the graduate studies, internships, and state licensing procedures. You can call yourself psychologist as well. So there is a discrepancy, the quality of the psychotherapy services people can have, right? So since 2017, the Japanese government started the licensing regulation and processing, and it's not required from everyone. So you can choose to be licensed. And however, if you choose to be licensed, you have to follow the regulations and guidelines this licensing board asks you, right, to comply. I am not licensed, the Japanese licensing. I'm not licensed in Japan because I have few reservations about this procedure. But licensing is not that hard. So it's same as, if you have a graduate degree, if you have a experienced, and if you had internships, then yeah, you can just provide those documents and then you take an exam, and you can be licensed. So that part I do not have a problem with. The part is, if I'm licensed, I'm required, I believe I'm obligated to report to the psychiatrist or whoever, other psychologist even. Let's say that I have a client who comes to me with the anxiety issues, and I find out that she was seeing a psychiatrist. She was prescribed. She used to take a prescription medication from another provider 6 months ago. Yeah. So then, because of my license, I am required to contact that psychiatrist and letting him or her know that this client came to me and her situation is like this, right? I have to inform the other providers. So which I have a problem with that.
So you need to share certain information with others.
So without, not necessarily without the client's permission, right? So which I take this violating a client's confidentiality, right? If I have a permission from the client and please do it, I do not have a problem. But sometimes, as you've been practicing, and sometimes people have an issue with the former provider. Not necessarily everyone says very nice goodbyes, right? And then letting the old provider know that I have a new provider. So again, in Japanese society, the harmony, right? Not harming anyone's, feelings is very important. It will impact them negatively. So yeah, so I have a little bit problem with that. I'm still considering, because recently many psychologists raised this opinion, right? Not just me, of us not liking this requirement. And I'm not sure if they change this situation, then yeah, I would be happy to be licensed and follow the guidelines of the Japanese Clinical Psychology Board.
What is your therapeutic approach?
Oh yes, I actually use so I'm specialized. I'm doing research on the trauma-related disorder and the personality disorder. So, which means that I extensively use trauma-focused CBT, and for the personality disorder, so borderline personality disorder is my focus at the moment. So I use dialectical behavioral therapy. And I also use that short-term intensive psychodynamic psychotherapy. And acceptance and commitment therapy. So those are my main tools approach.
Okay, so how society looks upon psychotherapy or any psychological help?
Wow, that's because not just Japan, the whole continent, Asia, the psychology and psychotherapy is still developing. The people is still catching up what's in European people think, or how it's normalized in America or North America, right? It's still new concept, and which means they still suffer from the dilemma, the taboo, and reluctancy to seek help, because one of the Asian values is a face-saving value, right? That your reputation is more important than whatever issue is going through. You just keep it inside of yourself. You don't want to embarrass yourself or your family. So that is still, hindering the people seeking more help. But however, the last 5 years, I see significant drastic change, the people seeking help, because, the social media, people start talking on social media, and the celebrities, they openly started talking their struggle with mental health issues. So that helped. So it's getting better, and people are more being educated and less, reluctant of asking help. However, it's still very much heavily medication-centered approach. So one of the big reason is that psychotherapy is not covered by insurance, not by the national health insurance in Japan or any other private insurance. But psychiatry, prescription medication management is still, it's covered by insurance. So you pay far less, right? So if you go to psychotherapist, you pay at least, I don't know, 6-7 times more, and it's out of your pocket. And again, so many psychologists say now that we start lobbying for the insurance.
And even if you are licensed,
it doesn't matter. The license
doesn't matter.
Yes.
Oh, okay, interesting. Okay, so what is the society teaching about child-parent relationship, and whether these values of society also affect how the therapists design the interventions?
So one of the things I really admire about the children's manner, how different is it, the places I've used to live or studied or worked, is that the consideration, the manner, in public place, even little children, they act like adults. They're well behaved and controlled. They're very considerate, which means, again, when we go back to the harmony situation, right? They must have learned from parents, you do not behave that, you do not bother other people, right? So eating, speaking loudly, and not caring the people passing by or not. And they must have learned that from very young age. So that is one of the amazing thing I see. And so since we are therapists, that things we see and want to help is that the tough love. So Japanese parents, what I observe in my practice, the people, my Japanese clients that come with the issues is that they were raised that fear-based strategy upbringing. So if you don't study hard, then you will have terrible, awful future, right? So and that I'm only being strict with you because I love you so much. So my, harsh words and my cold attitudes, or me making you study 5 hours, 10 hours a day, is only for me to showing my love, right? And that kind of idea is so deep in Japanese society. And for children, of course, they don't know this is how my mom or my dad is loving me. It's their love language, right? They don't know. What they see is that I'm being less, I'm not being good enough, that I'm not making my parents happy, so I'm a bad child, right? So this insecurity, the way they see themselves, is very harmful.
Yeah.
And that's one thing. And second thing, the big thing I also see is that the comparison, right? That your uncle's, your cousin is better than you, or your classmate Maria is more nicer than you, and they compare their children, and this comparing language is very frequent, right? It's almost normalized. And then they believe that, by comparing, I'm assuming, no parent thinks that intentionally I'm harming my child by saying that. They believe that it's me wanting my child to be influenced by those, the model children that I see, right? However, it's again the harming the child deeply, leaving a scar about who they are. And then they grew up learning, compare themselves, right? So you always find someone better than you. And rather than, admiring the person's good quality and being inspired, they actually start blaming themselves. They go to the old pattern they used to feel, right? And that is one of the things I also see. And then the interdependence, that need to belong to a certain group, need to have their own people that it can be friends group, it can be family group, or interest group, study group. So dependent, their well-being, highly dependent on the others, how the others treat you, how they talk to you. And those are kind of very harmful behaviors I noticed.
Can you expand a little bit on the last aspect regarding this dependence? So
interdependence. Actually, there's an amazing study in the United States. This longitudinal study has done over the years. It's called Midlife Well-Being America, right? So they gather like every year, like at least 3,000 people, and then measure their well-being and happiness, what's dependent, right? What makes them, score higher in, happiness level. And among Americans, they found that independence is the key of one being happier and well. And Japan adopted the same study in 2018, and they studied 10,000 adults based in Tokyo, and they found that their happiness is increased when the interdependence score is higher, which means when they belong to other people, when the co-workers, friends, family members, they have this external acknowledgement, approval from other people, their well-being goes up, right? So their happiness level depend on others. So that's the interdependence. But the Americans, that the independence, more they express themselves, their happiness doesn't depend much on the others, the same as the Japanese people.
The fifth question, what are the learned beliefs regarding client-therapist relationship, and can the relationship continue outside the therapy once the therapy process is over?
Okay. I'm not familiar of the Japanese ethics, to be honest. So I follow where I was, the ethics, the American Association of Psychology. I follow the where I used to be licensed, the ethics guidelines, right? So I do not have any outside contact with my clients. But I hear from my clients that when they used to see some Japanese providers, they also used to see their therapists outside their office, which I found that it will complicate the boundary issue a lot. So I guess it's very much free, that depending on what the therapist's preference is, not really the guidelines, I'm assuming here.
So what are the beliefs regarding client-therapist relationship? What was interesting for me in the pre-interview, you mentioned like a client as a customer and idealization of a therapist.
Yes. So there's two different category in relation to client-therapist relationship. So one being a doctor-patient relationship, right? So when there's a doctor, the doctor has the power and control, and the patient needs to listen what the doctor says, right? And I see this attitude a lot among my Japanese clients, that even I've seen a few of my clients they brought a notebook, right? They wanted to write down everything I say. So I had to actually really tell them that, maybe put the notes down, and then having a conversation, and then asking me question. And if you don't know the answer that I ask, it's okay to take some time. We have all the time, and this is where I respect what you think, the free thinking, right? And liberty to express one's emotion, because oftentimes they don't actually have the vocabulary. When you don't really practice talking about your emotion, expressing your opinion and ideas, you don't really know what to say. So it's easier for them like just study like a good student, right? And that's they're doing a lot. And then they go to the psychiatrist, and then they listen the story, maybe 10 minutes, and then they prescribe medication. So they really don't know how to have a psychotherapy. So that's one of the dynamic. And then the other dynamic I also see is that a service provider and the customer, right? And Japanese customer service is amazing. I would think it's the number one in the world. Like if you're a customer, the way the service staff treats you like a king and queen. So the clients sometimes, if they don't actually consider the psychotherapy as a medical treatment, they kind of sometimes assume that they can do whatever they want. If they want to schedule, they can schedule, right? So I had this one experience. I used to work at this Japanese clinic before I actually started my own private practice. So this clinic was a little bit unique. It's not really common Japanese mental health clinic. So this clinic, the fee is a bit expensive. The clientele, they basically usually have above average middle class kind of background. So you would see lots of financially successful people as a clients there. And one of my clients, he kind of showed some dependency issues, right? And he wanted to schedule 3 times a week. And of course, the client showing a dependency issue problems, you don't want to schedule that much, right? You're only encouraging the dependency, and you worsen the symptoms there. And so the clinic management, the receptionist who kind of takes care of the scheduling process, she schedules him, even though I told her that not to schedule him. And then, but for the receptionist, the office manager, for them, the clients are the customers. They do what the clients say, right? There's a little bit blurry line there, right?
Yeah.
And then the clients think also that I'm paying the money, so you do what's kind of, what I want, right? So again, you have to really, sometimes start with the psychoeducation, right? What the psychotherapy is, right? For the coaching clients, they can see us as many times as they want, right? If there is no clinical underlying symptoms.
Yeah.
So that's the 2 attitude I'm seeing mostly.
Yeah. I am also wondering if this harmony aspect translates to the therapeutic relationship, so that the client maybe wants to, I don't know, please you or be harmonious with you.
Yeah. Yes, definitely. I mean, they're always so considerate, right? Sometimes, in my Japanese clients, when they pay their payment, the therapy fee, they sometimes have very nice envelope, right? When they're paying in cash, they put the cash in a very beautiful envelope and then hand it to me like this, for example. It's of course some of my expert clients do that too, but it's very common among Japanese clients. And then in a Japanese culture, when you go to different cities, so I live in Tokyo. So when you go to Kyoto, for example, and then there's a very unique dessert in Kyoto, and then people buy and then give each other, the co-workers. And sometimes they bring that kind of little snacks or desserts to me. And of course, I'm not allowed to accept any type of, even it's just a piece of chocolate. They tend to bring that kind of things, for example.
6th question is supervision a must for the therapists in Japan?
I think it's more about the work experience rather than supervision. So there are, I believe, 4 pathways you can get licensed. So how many years of study, how many years of the work experience. So it changes, right? If you have a graduate degree, then maybe you need to have maybe 2 years of work experience. Or if you don't have a graduate degree, and then you might have, if you only have a undergraduate degree, then you might need 5 years of work experience and such. So I think there are 4 pathways you can proceed to for the licensing.
Okay. What are the most common complaints that a client comes to therapy for?
So if I could just sum up in one word, it will be not fitting in, right? So it all goes back to the harmony situation here. So it's a very much conformist society. The more you are like to others, more you think alike, feel alike, live your life similar to the people, you feel okay, right? And then the more you have differences, then you feel less. You have more, conflict within yourself. And that also sometimes you get bullied by by the people around you, which is so sad. So when people feeling significant difference among the same Japanese people, they get bullied, and they think that there's something is wrong with them, and they need to fix themselves. Why I'm so different, right? Why I cannot just think like that? Why I can't be okay with this thing, right? So they try to suppress it first. And then, of course, if it's your identity, if it's your personality, if it's your characteristics, you cannot suppress it. And then it becomes anxiety disorder. It becomes depression, right? So, yeah, so they come with many different mental health illnesses, but the main underlying cause is that being different simply because it's not encouraged. So I would usually start with this type of clients that, giving permission to yourself. It's okay to be different. There's nothing wrong with me. And how my difference is causing me problem or causing the others problem, right? Have to coexist.
And how it is to be an expert in this community, in this country?
My personal experience or my experience as a therapist?
You can share both.
So being a therapist in Japan, I do have, as an expat psychologist, I have an amazing opportunity to meet people from all around the world. Like I would have, if I have 5 clients a day, they can be all from different countries.
Yeah.
And which is very exciting for me, right? So I have that chance living in a big city and then having a diverse, clientele. That gives, if you, compare that when I used to practice in America, mostly I have, they have a different backgrounds, but mostly Americans.
Yeah.
So that is one of the things I'm really grateful for this experience. And as a person living in Japan, so I value peace, contentness a lot, right? So there is, of course, the culture is based on harmony. So there is less confrontation, less distress, the less people that causing unnecessary stress, right? So because let's say that I just take a simple example that in the elevators, right? There's always if someone standing next closer to the buttons, and this person always pushes the exit button until everyone leaves, right? If someone is there, they're still pushing the button until you're actually in. So these little small considerations, right? Opening a door, giving you a way, not blocking your way, or giving you space, being very, let's say, again, considerate to your needs. It's very pleasant.
Yeah. Okay, the last question. If you would share one tool, belief, or approach that is a must-have for you as a therapist, what would that be?
Wow, that's tough because I love all the approach. I cannot cherry pick. But recently, I'm very into this one approach called focusing. And this approach was created by Dr. Gwendolyn. So what you do is basically you're asking a client lie down on a couch or on the floor, and then eyes closed, and practicing a deep belly breathing and centering your body. And then you ask the client to scan your body from head to toe, right? By scanning that, you're scanning if there is any sensation you feel in your body. Sensation will be like a hot and cold, heavy and cold, or pain or pleasure, anything, any felt sense. So you look for that any felt sense in your body, scanning, right? And then you locate one felt sense in one area. Of course, that, one area meaning that it can be like chest area, ankle, hand, arm, fingers. So you find wherever this something is more felt, right? And then you focus, you stay there, that with the felt sense. And then you ask this felt sense, what's the quality of this felt sense? Quality meaning that, let's say that I'm feeling heaviness in my chest, on my chest. And then you ask, what's the quality of it? That what kind of words would define this heavy sensation you're feeling? And the client might say that, feels like a rock, right? Okay, so, that rock on your chest, what it is doing, what's the worst thing this rock can do, right? So then the client will say that it's going to crush me, it's going to crush my chest if I keep it having, right? So, and then you might go forward. So if it crushes your chest, what's there being crushed, right? So I'm just making here up, right? So the client might say, it's going to crush my dreams. And then you ask, what kind of dreams it's about to crush, right? Is it already crushed, or is it on the process of being crushed, or it's going to crush the dream? And can you tell me that dream, right? And then you go there, and then the clients, still eyes closed, they still, keep the breathing, and explain more. So, and during this process, I noticed there's a significant shift the clients experience. The shift meaning that something just, processed there. There's something you were just not understanding. Your cognition, your consciousness wouldn't really understand and can't even find it. There's something you actually found in your body, right? And now you know what was happening, bothering you. And that kind of shift, actually, I noticed that in my clients. And usually they said, wow, like it's very nice. Like, what happened to me, kind of thing. Yeah, improvement sometimes I see. And I combine this approach mostly when the CBT is not really giving us the improvement, and much impact. You get stagnant on the process. Sometimes the client's not showing improvement as you want. And then I use this approach. Sometimes it really helps getting, stuck out of the situation.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for doing this interview with me. For me, it was super insightful.
Thank you so much. I love talking to you.
Are you a psychotherapist and want to be a part of my project? Feel free to contact me through my webpage. Thank you for listening.